What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another fantastic episode of The Jump Off. I am your host, KODX Factor, and we are here live in the studio again. We are recording on a Saturday, which is odd because we normally record in the middle of the week, so Wednesday, Thursdays tends to be our normal recording day. But we took a break this week in the middle of the week because we had a lot of stuff piling up. We had a lot of stuff to get done, so we just didn't have the full opportunity to get a show in. But I am here on an early Saturday morning, here for you guys. So we're going to be diving right into some gaming goodness. Now, we've got a lot going on this week and weekend as well. We've got Madden 19 here in the office. We have We Happy Few here in the office. We're going to be doing gameplay footage of that, so let's plays. And we've got 2 reviews going up. The We Happy Few review is actually going up as we speak. It just finished editing not too long ago. The voiceover has been completed and is actually getting to the final stages to be put up on our YouTube channel. So make sure you check out our YouTube channel and our website, www.GameNightLounge.wordpress.com, to check out all the latest and greatest as far as our gameplay, let's plays, and our reviews. So the under reviews will be going up this weekend for both of those titles, and our let's plays are going to be going up as well. So we've got a lot coming down. But there's a couple things I wanted to talk about specifically on the show this week, and they kind of touch a little bit close to home. Well, one story in particular does. The other one, not so much, but it kind of does. It kind of does a little bit, but it's kind of, I don't want to say cool to think of, but it's a little bit, it's funny. Put it that way. So what we're going to talk about today, the first thing we're going to talk about is obviously the big news about what IGN had done to a little YouTuber as far as stealing his review and stuff like that. So I'm sure some of you guys, if you're familiar and you're on YouTube quite a bit, or you just you tend to go to it every once in a while, you may have read about or heard about a specific YouTube player. I say player, but I mean YouTuber who reviews video games for himself and for his own channel. Who had his review stolen. I'm sorry for the long pause there, but had his review stolen by IGN. And the game we are talking about is Dead Cells, and that's the game that's in question. The second story we're going to talk about, there was a lot of pausing there. I do apologize for that. The second story we're going to talk about is the system sales numbers came in from last month, and the Switch was it was okay. PlayStation had a big milestone. I think they hit the 30 million mark, if I'm not mistaken. But then Xbox kind of fell back on the wayside a little bit. So it's just kind of, and then the top system was the NES Classic. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, whether that's something that is considered is the NES Classic considered a system by like MPD standards of what they normally are today. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But the first thing we're going to dive right into is this big story between IGN and a YouTube gamer who put out a review. Now, here's the story. So for those of you that don't follow it or are not aware of it, there are many, many millions of YouTube channels out there. There's a channel like ours. We do Let's Play videos, and we do walkthroughs, and we do reviews. We just started getting really, really heavy into the reviews. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I did used to work with a collective group of really, really talented individuals. Many of them have went off to different avenues in the same entertainment medium, just different websites. One actually is worked with IGN. So we collectively worked on this website, and we did reviews and news stories and previews. And I had a great time, a great group of guys that I worked with. All of them I still kind of keep in contact with today. One of them has already been on, not the Jump Off show, but our Gaming Sports News podcast. He's actually very big in himself, RDT85. So big ups to RDT85. But what I'm talking about is there's a guy who runs a YouTube channel called Boomstick Gaming. And he reviewed a game called Dead Cells. Now, Dead Cells is a game. It's like a 2D side scroller. It's like the modern day Castlevania, if you will, the Castlevania everybody's been clamoring for quite a while. And he put up a video review where he spliced in a lot of his gameplay elements, spliced it all together, did a voiceover work. It came together really, really well. He gave the game a final review score at the end of it, obviously, like you do with any kind of a review. And here's the kicker. IGN, and if you know gaming, you probably know who IGN is. It is an online publication that hires writers and freelance writers to do news stories, to do game coverages. They cover all the conferences, so if you watched E3, I'm sure you saw some of their coverage as well. And reviews. They're big on reviews as well. Whoever wrote the review, not necessarily wrote the review, but did the video review, because they do a written review and a video review. Most times if you watch something on YouTube, it's going to be a video review anyway. They're not going to just read off of a script. But the video review, whoever did the video review, was almost like a direct rip from this lower end YouTube. And I say lower end because technically, if we're not up to like the 30 million subscriber mark, like some of these other publications like IGN, GameSpot are, we're considered kind of like on the lower tier of it, or the lower end. So Boomstick Gaming put together this review for Dead Cells. IGN took that review almost verbatim. I won't say exact word for word because they did switch up some of the words to make it seem like it was their own. But it followed in a sequence exactly like Boomstick Gaming's was. The gameplay taken straight from Boomstick Gaming's. Now, I watched RGT85's video on this same topic as well, and I have to agree with him on this. If you want to take my gameplay footage and use that in your own video review, I have no problem with that. Just share the gameplay around. That's fine. I don't care. But when you take my work, my written work, my thoughts that I put into those words that I overlaid over top that gameplay and write them off as your own, then we have a problem. And it's not a good look. Especially for a place such as IGN. It's not a good look whatsoever. It just makes it look like you're stealing all of your review ideas and you're taking them from people that aren't necessarily in the position that some of these guys are. I'm sure whoever did the video review for Dead Cells for IGN is either getting paid pretty handsomely for it or is getting plenty of coverage for it. There's eyes always looking at it for it, or looking at him for this review. As opposed to Boomstick Gaming, who doesn't have the same type of audience numbers that the IGN has in this department, but put together a better review and the original review. So what you heard from IGN is actually Boomstick Gaming. Now I give Boomstick Gaming a big round of applause for this because they could have gone straight after IGN and said, "Look, you guys plagiarized what I did, and this is what." And start taking more action towards it. Boomstick Gaming made a separate YouTube video aside from his review for Dead Cells and did a comparison video. So for any of those that had question as to whether this was legit or not, he did a side-by-side comparison of both reviews and went back and forth with the reviews. So you can hear how he did a certain part and then how IGN did their certain part. And when you do them like that, you see the similarities clear as day. Word for word, almost verbatim in some instances. Not the whole thing, but some instances, verbatim. Not to mention that even like the topics followed in a sequence. Because everybody who does reviews, and sorry, my voice is kind of going in and out because my throat's been kind of iffy all morning. But when you do reviews, and I've done reviews for many years, you have an outline of what you want to talk about, what you plan to cover. And when you play through a game, you take notes on all those particular categories, what goes where, and how you want to flow it into a sequence. That's how I did my reviews. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people that do their reviews that exact same way. So not everybody who does a review is going to follow in the same exact sequence as you. They may get similar in some aspects, but they're not going to follow verbatim from point A to point B, which is the beginning and end, exactly the same. IGN did that with Dead Cells. They followed the exact same sequence and used the exact same highlight points as Boomstick Gaming. Now, this paints a very, very dark cloud and very, very bland picture of IGN. Now, look, I wasn't always the biggest fan of IGN. I never have. I don't agree with a lot of their review scores. I don't agree with a lot of their stuff. It's like Game Informer. I have stopped trusting in Game Informer. I could care less about Game Informer's review scores and some of their topics for many years. I can't count the last time I even picked up a Game Informer magazine and even read it. But IGN was starting to tread that line as well. GameStop, I'll still read every once in a while because they're pretty. GameSpot is one of those that's kind of brutal with their reviews. They're blatantly honest. They're going to be they're going to tell you straight up what's wrong with the game if there is anything wrong with the game. And if they give a game a good review, the game's going to be daggone good. IGN's a crapshoot. You could get somebody that is all about the game, and you're not going to be able to tell him anything if the game sucks or not. And then you're going to have some that are actually going to be pretty honest with their reviews. So IGN is like a crapshoot. You're going to get some good, you're going to get a lot of bad. But all reviewers are like that. You're not going to always agree with every single review that goes out there. But when you are in a time crunch, and look, like I said, I've done reviews for publications before many years ago, and I've done it for quite some time. I have relationships with different studios for this type of stuff. There are time crunches. You get a game, you're expected to be done with that game by this date, and the review has got to be ready to go up by this time on this date. I still remember my Fallout 3 review. Oh, dear Lord. Bethesda sent me my copy of Fallout. Was it Fallout? No. Was it? I think it was Fallout. I believe it was Fallout. It was either that or Dishonored because they sent me both. Anyhow, they sent it in the mail, and 1 week the game was supposed to release the following week. So we get the game a week early. We got the game a week early. Now sometimes we'll get the game 2-3 weeks early. Sometimes we'll get the game 2-3 days before the release, and sometimes we'll get it a week. So it's just all kind of like a crapshoot. But games like Fallout or Dishonored, games that are going to take you forever to get through, and you just don't think that 3 or 4 days or a week is going to be long enough to get through that. So I'm sure, I know of time crunches. I know how it feels. And this particular writer, or this guy who did this particular video, probably said, you know what, I am in such a time crunch. I have other games I have to get to as well besides Dead Cells. So he took a shortcut and went to YouTube, found somebody who did a review of it, in this case, Boomstick Gaming, and then got in notes from his entire review and then wrote them off on his own. Maybe copied a lot of the sentences down and then wrote them off as his own. Turned the review in, IGN posted up without doing a full analysis of it. Now, I think that IGN probably is going to start doing this from this point on. Is any video review that's submitted, they're going to have a team or somebody look at these reviews, go to YouTube and other publications and start typing in, start looking at to see the comparisons between that one and if there's anybody else online that can make the same type of claim. They're going to have to do that because I'm sure that this guy probably got into one of those situations where it was a time crunch and he had to do this. He didn't have to, but he chose to. And it was a poor decision because I have no respect for anybody that does that to begin with. You take somebody else's ideas and you pass them off as your own. It's just completely wrong. Completely wrong. And look, like I said, and like RGT85 said, if you want to use my gameplay footage, or you want to use some of the elements of the gameplay that I took, please feel free. Just do not take my words and pass them off as your own to where you get the credit for it, or don't even make credit or mention of my review whatsoever. I'm even okay as going if like IGN or somebody like that contacted me and said, look, we want to use either your review or can we use elements of your review for our review? We would greatly appreciate it. We'll give you credit for what your thoughts were. Hey, at least they will go that extra step and give me credit for what is mine. But they didn't do that in this situation. They just blatantly took it and ran with it. So that's my thoughts and opinions on that. I would love to know your guys' thoughts on that. Please let us know in the comments. Please let us know in the video comments as well. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. So that way we can get a good idea of what everybody's thoughts are on this, because I don't agree with it. I'm sure many, many of you don't agree with it as well. It's just one of those things that is just written off as being extremely wrong. And how many of you guys even noticed that? IGN took that Dead Cells review down pretty quickly after the claim was made. As a matter of fact, the review just reposted about 15 hours ago, and this is on Saturday. So the review was reposted again on Friday. There's still no video review of it. That has been just completely stripped. It's no longer on the channel. But the written review and all that stuff is back up on their website 15 hours ago as of right now. So the next thing I wanted to just kind of go over real quick before we sign off here today is I wanted to talk about the system sales and what this could mean going forward. Some of you guys might have seen some of the sale numbers out there for these different platforms and these different systems last month during the NPD numbers. PlayStation did extremely well. It did number 2. The Nintendo Switch did number 3, and Xbox did last. But the number 1 selling system was the NES Classic. How do you guys feel about that? Should it be categorized as a platform or a system? I mean, is it technically a system? It is technically a system. You do play games on it. You do plug it in. It is a system. But do you think it should be tracked in the same way that these other ones are at the moment? I would actually be okay if it wasn't. I don't mind if it's not tracked. Because when we look at system sales, especially from these other manufacturers, you know, they see these numbers and now like Nintendo, or not Nintendo, but now Sony and Microsoft looked at these numbers and were like, Nintendo's got 2 systems on this list. The Switch and the NES Classic. And they took the number 1 and 3 spot. At the same time, it works this way. The Nintendo had handhelds on that system chart for the longest time. The DS and stuff like that were on the NPD tracker for the longest time. So Nintendo was up there multiple times before. So can it be tracked the same way as it does other systems? It can, yeah, most certainly. Should it? That's up for debate. If you ask my own personal opinion, I actually don't mind. It doesn't bother me. I'd be okay if it was. I'd be okay if it wasn't. It doesn't bother me. I don't get all thrown up in arms about it, where some people are just completely floored by the idea that the NES Classic is tracked by standard NPD numbers. Nintendo, I'm sure, wants to know the sale of a lot of this stuff. Why wouldn't they? They want to know how well this thing's doing since they brought it back to market. Because if you remember, they took this thing off market for such a while. They only made a certain amount until people started buying them up in droves and reselling them on YouTube for an an astronomical amount. So it just kind of goes to show you that Nintendo wants to track everything about what they're offering hardware wise, because it is a piece of hardware. It's not a piece of software. It is a piece of hardware. So you have to understand this. It is going to be tracked normally like everybody else is. So you just have to kind of understand that. Now, Sony and Microsoft, they got some good look. Microsoft has been having a hard time with the system sale NPD numbers since the system launched. It's had a hard time. It's had a hard time keeping up with Sony, because Sony's just been kind of blowing it out of the park with the PS4, and I think that's why Microsoft is getting so itchy with their new system that they're working on and talking more and more openly about it, because I think they want to be the first to the market again, like they were with the Xbox 360. And if you remember, the Xbox 360 killed it in NPD numbers every single month. Well, the Wii was, but 360 was the big platform that was beating out PlayStation month over month and year over year. And then it just did like a complete 360 reversal, where PS4 was beating out the Xbox One every month year over year. Now Xbox has won a couple months here and there, but nothing ever consistent. And I'm sure Microsoft is looking at this saying, look, we need to make an early jump or an early splash with these next generation systems, so we need to start talking about them now. And we talked a couple of shows ago about these upcoming systems, what they could be, what they could mean, when they could release, and when we could possibly see any kind of announcement about it. You guys remember that? You can go back in the archives and look at a couple episodes ago when we were talking about the codename Scarlet. And Gamescom is still coming up. It hasn't happened yet, but Gamescom is still coming. A few weeks away from Gamescom. And I'm sure we're going to start finding out more and more stuff. Maybe not in the way of the new platforms, but maybe we'll hear some rumblings about what their future plans are. We know they're working on something. We don't know much more beyond that. So that's what we have to kind of look forward to. Now, we gotta look at, when we look at today's NPD numbers, are they really distinct? Do we really know the full story about these platforms? Yeah, Sony's winning the console war. We know that. Microsoft is making some great strides with their platform in regards to content and stuff that they're providing. I get that. Their Xbox Game Pass is a big success. And quite honestly, the way that they're going about, especially with their Game Pass, is just like leaps and bounds beyond what the other two platforms are doing. Now, of course, PlayStation has its own platform in which you can subscribe and play an X amount of games for as long as you have the pass subscription for. Whereas the Game Pass has much more games to offer, as well as first-party games available on day one. That just kind of makes it almost like an unbeatable bargain. The Switch, not so much in that department. It doesn't have any kind of subscription-based service for games. It doesn't even have, and they're getting ready to load up by the end of September their online service, which you will have to pay for if you want to play online. So for those of you that have been used to playing Fortnite and other stuff for free online on the Switch, you're going to be in for a rude awakening when you go to turn your platform on towards the end of September and you realize you got to have a subscription, you got to pay for it. So these are all going to be kind of derivative of the NPD numbers as we see them as a whole. Yeah, Sony's still leading. I don't think there's any way at this point that Microsoft is going to be able to catch them in the straight outright number system sales. I think they just passed 30 million, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think there's any way that Microsoft is going to catch them this generation. The way that they're going to make their dent is they're going to have to get a jump start on the next generation. Maybe not be the first one to market, but you just got to put together the better platform. Keep what makes your core gamers happy. Your Xbox Live is still, to me, the better service, the better online service out of all the platforms. To me, it always has been. I think it's still going as strong today as it has before. Sony used to be free. Now you got to pay for it. But you're paying for pretty much what you got free last generation. The only difference is the PlayStation Plus games. And I will admit this: the PlayStation Plus games that they give you for free every month are a bit better on the PlayStation than they are the Xbox, because the Xbox gives you Xbox Live games. Games for gold, as they call them, every month as well, just to kind of combat what Sony was doing. So I will say, out of the games that they give you for free, the Sony ones are a bit better. Look at this month, for example. PlayStation Plus got Mafia 3 and Dead by Daylight Special Edition. Xbox got Dead Space 3, which I was told that you can't even play online now. It's just a single-player game. And then what, Forza Horizon 2? Is that what it was? You know, and I think they have another game too, and I heard it's actually really, really good. I just can't remember the name of the game coming later in the month off the top of my head. But that's just one example. Last month was even better for PlayStation Plus as well. So if you're in it for the free games, you're going to get more of your money's worth, I think, with the PlayStation Plus one than you will the Xbox Live one. But to me, the service is much better on Xbox than it is on PlayStation. But that's just my own personal opinion. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of you out there combating me on it. So, hey, open the floodgates up. Go right ahead. I actually would love the debate. So if you want to talk about it, we're more than happy to do so. But I think that's going to do it for us this week. I thank you guys so much for listening. I would greatly, greatly appreciate any comments, subscriptions, or follows you can give us. I would greatly appreciate it. You can find us on many different avenues. You can find us on our website at www.GameNightLounge.wordpress.com. You can find us on YouTube. Our channel is The Game Night Lounge. All of our Let's Play videos, walkthroughs, and dynamic duos and under reviews are on there as well. You can follow us on Twitter at The Game Night Lounge, and you can follow me personally on Twitter at Game Night Lounge. Also, make sure you follow us and like us on all the avenues for podcasting, podbean.com, iTunes, Google Play. We're on all those different locations. So thank you guys so much for listening. I am KOD X Factor. This is The Jump Off. We are part of the Game Night Lounge Media Network, and all the guests that appear on this show and future shows are part of the Game Night Lounge Media Network as well. Thank you guys so much for listening. Until next week, everybody, game on.